What's up, everyone, and welcome to All Things Owensboro podcast, where an ordinary town meets extraordinary stories. I'm your host, Brad Winter, a professional of absolutely nothing, but an enthusiast of good conversation, great stories, and community ministry at First Baptist Church Owensboro. In today's episode, Louisville raised him and Owensboro shaped him. Today's guest, K.O. Lewis, is an assistant principal, former football coach, and gifted artist who's made a lasting mark on this community, both in the classroom and on the canvas. A Kentucky Wesleyan graduate, K.O. Lewis moved to Owensboro for school and never left, finding purpose in teaching, mentoring, and creating art that celebrates Black excellence, identity, and resilience. We talk about his journey from the football field to the classroom, and then to the front office, his creative process as a contemporary expressionist, and some other words he says, and what it's like balancing family and passion. And yes, how he manages life as a die-hard Cardinals fan in the middle of Big Blue Nation. Go Cats. This is K.O. Lewis, The Art of Impact, a conversation about purpose, creativity, and building a legacy right here in Owensboro, Kentucky. And hey, if you're looking for a church that feels like home, come check out First Baptist Church Owensboro on all socials at FBCOWB. We love to have you here on Sundays at 10:30 a.m. next to the Blue Bridge. If you send a text to the episode notes, me and my family will sit next to you. All right, enough chit-chat. Let's step into the studio and see what inspires the man behind the art. Hey guys, welcome back to All Things Owensboro. This week I am joined by the K.O. Lewis over here at Newton Parish Elementary, assistant principal. My girls go to this school, and I've found him on Facebook, and I've seen his paintings, and they're awesome. And I knew I had to get this guy on. So, Mr. K.O., I know you're really connected with Owensboro, so thanks for coming on, man.
No problem at all. I appreciate it. Yeah,
no problem. I'm looking forward to this. Like I said, I have a guy, Tehran. He works with me over at the gym. He's connected with a few different people. So if you're listening, Tehran, this one's for you, bud. So, all right, let's go into the first question, K.O. So you're not originally from here. You're from the Louisville area.
Yes.
And so you shared how your mom fought for you to get into DuPont. Am I saying that right?
Yes, DuPont Manual High School, very prestigious school in the Louisville area. It's one of those schools. So in Louisville, the school systems are a little bit different, especially at that level. You have your home schools, you have your magnet schools, and then you have, like your private schools. And so with DuPont Manual being a magnet school, it's a school that you have to apply to. You have to, go through a competitive process to be accepted into the programs. And so I went through a process to get into their art program. And felt like I'd done well enough to get in, but sometimes it becomes a numbers game, and it didn't work out. Initially, I was denied access, but my mom, she is one that was a strong advocate for education, and so I definitely appreciate that about her. My older brothers, I have three older brothers, they all went to that school. And really for her, it was important to try to make sure we had a solid foundation educationally. And so she knew what, that school brought to the table. And so she definitely fought on my behalf to get in. And so she started lobbying to the coaches and some of the art, members, and really just made it very clear to the principal that I've had three kids that have already gone through here. There's no need for us to change that up now. Let's continue this process.
Yeah, and obviously that made a huge difference because it allowed you to set up to become the artist you are today, or have influence into that. And so, how did her belief in that? I mean, I know she fought for you, but how did that really shape you into who you are today and your purpose? I
would say the thing that had more of an impact on me was just our upbringing. And so I come from humble beginnings. I'm not somebody who, I wasn't born with a silver spoon. It's not like we had a lot. We had what we needed. We were raised with a lot of love. And I think that was the most important thing that I benefited from. My mom instilled a lot of discipline in us. We had our challenges. My father, he definitely gave a lot of non-examples for us to develop through. But I think really going through that, seeing, the dichotomy of, what's expected versus what is not expected, and having to kind of toe that line and understand that, there's a gray area in most things, really helped shape my thinking and being able to see a lot of different things. And so, going through that part, growing up in the west end of Louisville was important to me. If anybody asks me, where I'm from, I always say Louisville, Kentucky. No disrespect to Owensboro. But it's just something that is near and dear to my heart, just because I understand the challenges that, my family faced, and really the variety of programs and groups that my mom and made sure that we were involved with. I grew up in the West Louisville Boys Choir from at the time that I was 4 or 5 years old all the way through till football became a prominent part of my life.
Okay.
Played basketball in elementary school, football, softball until I got hit upside the head with a softball twice and realized it wasn't my sport. So, I had a wide variety of things where my mother, it was important for her to keep us active. We saw the streets. We saw what impact the streets had, on us, on the people around us. And we dealt with that directly. My father, he had his challenges, and through his challenges, we got a chance to see what could become if we continued to, or if we did not put ourselves in positions to stay focused on something. Whether it be athletics, whether it be music, whether it be academics. Find something to place your focus on and give your entire effort to, so that you give yourself a chance to become something. And so. A lot of the discipline that I have now, as a man, as a grown up, comes from those opportunities that I had. People like Brother McDaniel Blewett and all of my coaches from Little League and my teachers, like all of them. Like I remember their faces more than I remember some of their names, but at the end of the day, I recognize what they did for me. And so I can look back on that in hopes of having a similar impact.
That's cool. And I think you are. I mean, even, I said like Tehran works for me, and he talked about how much you investing into him and then the others when he was at OHS was a big deal for him.
That's
and
awesome.
So I think you're getting there. And
see, I'm telling you, I don't know if Tehran kept it honest with you. Tehran, he gave me a run for my money a few times.
Did he? Okay.
I can appreciate that about him, but my God, there were some discussions we had.
Yeah, and that's part
moments,
of like,
sure.
Yeah, for sure. And like mentoring is messy.
It's
not supposed to be all perfect, or a lot of people do it. And so, you talked about Louisville. I'm originally from Philly, so I always tell people, where are you from Philly? I don't say Owensboro, but so I get that. You moved from big old Louisville to little old Owensboro for college,
right.
To play football at KWC. What was that transition like, and what really started for it to really feel like home?
So initially, I really had no clue what Owensboro was. Well, I'll take that line back. Owensboro has connections to most of the major cities in the area. And my connection to Owensboro originally was through church. My mom, she would bring us down here for some of the conventions that would take place. And so I've been to Owensboro, and I guess just having some form of familiarity with, the name and just being in the city before made it an easy, sell for me. And when I finished up with high school, graduated, or while I was in high school, and we were trying to determine, where I would continue my educational career, trying to figure that out, there was a lot of hole-in-the-wall towns where colleges were located, and they were small. They were really small, and they were smaller than what I was comfortable with. Whereas Owensboro actually felt like a city, even though it was small at the time. It still is. It's still small, but it was really small then. And the only thing that we really had at that point was Frederick Street, but we had a mall. And it was funny how the mall was such a selling feature to me, because I felt like I had access to, something more than just going to college.
Yeah.
And then seeing Frederick continue to develop, and then 54 bloomed. And so very quickly, Owensboro grew. And so credit to, all of the council members and, the politicians of Owensboro for continuing to grow the city, because it put somebody like myself in a position of seeing it as a place that is worth, developing a family.
Yeah.
But it's funny, when I'm at my art shows, I always tell people, my wife is from Owensboro. And so when we got together and we, got married, I got the privilege to stay. And so that's kind of how, when you have somebody you love and you care about, you eventually, see yourself, where they are.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't very difficult for me to do that part. As long as I had her, I was good.
Yeah. This episode of All Things Owensboro is brought to you by K.O. Lewis Fine Art, where purpose meets paint. Owensboro's own K.O. Lewis is a school leader, mentor, and yes, a diehard Cardinals fan. But when he's in the studio, he's an artist whose work celebrates strength, beauty, and the stories that shape us. His portraits blend bold color, emotion, and truth, capturing the heartbeat of Black excellence and the spirit of community. Explore his latest collection or commission a piece that tells your story at KOLewisFineArt.com. That's KOLewisFineArt.com. Art that speaks, stories that stay, from Owensboro to wherever you call home. All right. So, you said you've been here, you got to watch it expand to become what it is as we know Owensboro today. Mm-hmm. And so for you as an educator, an artist, a neighbor, what makes Owensboro for you?
It's the people. I mean, and quite honestly, so everything that I've been involved with, I've always met somebody who has had an impact on me.
Okay.
And so no matter what I've done, I whether it be, when I was working at Best Buy or, when I was, at OHS or even at Seven Hills, Mr. Mike West. And then at OHS, I was, Coach Prince and Mrs. Burnett, Dave Walker, Miss Greer, like all of these people, they gave, John DeLacy, like these people have given, me a blueprint on how to do things a certain way. Mm-hmm. And not all of them are from Owensboro, but it's really cool to see the number of people that have migrated to Owensboro for one reason or another. Yeah. And they found value in Owensboro in a similar way that I have, and you get connected to these people and you see the beauty in it and trying to, do things a certain way to help develop, the youth, that is in this area. And so I keep going back to that. Like it's all about people, the relationships that you build, the connections that you make. I am nothing without those connections. I'm nothing without those type of people, because those connections are the things that, have shaped, who I, want to become. Yeah. Because I've had to do a lot of growing, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that I've been able to become, or transition from this young, naughty-headed little boy from Louisville, Kentucky, to being a well-respected individual that is a part of our district and a part of our community. Mm-hmm. I don't take that for granted. I don't take it lightly. But because of those people, like Olga McKenzick, these people are very important people and very impressive people. They do a lot for our community. Mm-hmm. They have all seen something in me in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And because of that, I get to a place where I don't want to let those kind of people down. And I benefit from their direction.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. And Miss Olga is one of the ladies. I know her. Mm-hmm. I need to get her on the podcast. And talking about even going back to Neblett Center, you got Kendall Perkins right there. You've been able to paint a picture of the Dust Bowl founders, mm-hmm. and you got to do some other things. So obviously you're an educator, but you're also an artist. Mm-hmm. I've seen you go to your shows all over the place, and so how do these roles feed each other? Like is there a connection there between educator and artist?
I would say that the way that I go about my process, mm-hmm. that's where the connection is at. Okay. I'm a firm believer in representation, because obviously our communities abroad, not just here, but in all areas, mm-hmm. can greatly benefit from representation. And I'll try to put a simple bow around what I do when it comes to art, because when I first started sharing my artwork, it was very simple-minded. In all fairness, mm-hmm. I was just painting iconic portraits, popular people, but there came a point in time where I really had to reconsider, what I was painting and why I was painting it. I had to ask myself that question, like, why am I painting these people? Mm-hmm. Like what importance do they have for me? Okay. Because you get to a place where your energy and your passion, it shows. Mm-hmm. Yes, you can make something looks cool, but it becomes stale. It becomes mm-hmm. commercial. It becomes simplified, and then at that point in time early on, I would say from 2015 to about 2020-ish, that's what I was dealing with. I was just kind of painting random people. Maybe someone recently passed away. Maybe somebody is super cool, somebody in sports. But I had my success in art transitioned because at that point I was selling artwork dirt cheap. And mm-hmm. I tell people all the time I was giving my artwork away. I really didn't understand my value in art until I started to create art for myself and to really create art that represented who I am as an individual, because what I create now is more of a representation of me as an individual, of the people who have had an impact on me, people who I've had experience with their literature. I resonate with their message. I resonate with their work. I resonate with the fight that they took on to try to have an impact on an individual like me to be able to do what I do, to be able to stand in front of a room full of people that may not look like me, but we all find some commonality to be able to work together. Like that, I do not take that for granted. And so I started painting people as a way to pay homage and to, represent those people, but also using the words, because words have power.
Yeah.
Words have impact. And so most of the words that I use or the messages that I use are either timely or inspirational in nature. And so I started off painting Muhammad Ali all the time. Obviously, with him being from Louisville, hometown hero, very easy connection. But I started thinking about, like, who do I resonate with? Like, who am I? And so my artwork, it was an opportunity for me to figure out what I stand for, and what am I fighting for? What is the thing that's going to, push me to get up out of bed in the morning and to try to have an impact? And so I just started with, some of the more common, people that I cared about. Your Martin Luther King's, your James Baldwin's, your Frederick Douglass's. Then I started thinking about Eartha Kitt. I started thinking about, some hip hop influences, like, Andre 3000, my favorite. Kendrick Lamar has an influence on some of my work. And so, it Langston Hughes, like it continues to go on, Nina Simone. These are the type of people that I connect with, and I connect with their work. Another one I paint quite often is, I think I said Nina Simone, didn't I?
I think you just did at the end, yeah.
Gotcha, yeah. So all these people I paint because they resonate with me, and their stories resonate with me. Like I really appreciate their stories, because within the struggle there's beauty, and a lot of times, in our culture of American history, I can't just call it Black history because it's American history. We find that the fact that we've grown the way that we have grown amongst the challenges that we faced is a story that we must push. We must propel that story as much as possible, instead of trying to discredit that story, because there's power within the people, there's power within the struggle. And now we could use that information and use that struggle to propel us to even do greater things. And so for me, it's important to tell those stories. And so education is power. And so the connection is through education. The more you know, the more you're willing to pick up a book and read and allow yourself to be open to different thoughts and viewpoints and ideas, the more you're willing to be open to the fact that, we're not simplified. We are very complex, and we can do many things that we put our mind to. And our communities are not, what they are just because of the people, but sometimes the circumstances have an impact on that. And so a lot of the stories that I tell speak to that. And so representation is everything, and I try to make sure that I show that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. You mentioned that you were kind of doing your own, I would say, stock in a sense, by 2015, 2020. So obviously 2020 was crazy. That forced a lot of people to slow down. Was that a big influence on forcing you kind of to slow down a little bit and reconsider your art and what you want to do going forward?
Yeah, there were a lot of things that happened around that time too.
Okay.
You talk about Mike Brown.
Yep.
George Floyd. Trayvon Martin. These things were happening at the time, and you get to a place where you're like, okay, well, I feel some kind of way, but how do I express this? Like, I'm not so confrontational in my soul that I want to go out and protest and shout and be heard in that way. But how can I make my voice, sing?
Like utilizing your platform.
True. And so I created a painting. It's a painting that is probably one of my more favorite paintings, and it's a painting of Emmett Till.
Okay.
And the painting that I did of Emmett Till was, I just did the portrait. And I had to take 3 different references and kind of put it together, because I didn't want him smiling, but I didn't want him frowning either. So there's good references where his eyes look a certain way, where the muzzle looks a certain way, and then just like, where I can see his head. So I took those three things, created a sketch, and I did a pretty large painting. It was 36 by 48 inch painting. And so a 3 foot by 4 foot painting. But when I originally did the painting, I had one quote by his mother. And it's essentially what the quote stated was, what happens to one of us happens to all of us. And so she was basically communicating why she wanted to have the open casket to show, what happens to us here is obviously is happening to all of us. So we can't hide the truth. It didn't tell the story strong enough, though. It fell flat. And so I did something that I still haven't done since then, but I cut the portrait out.
Really? Okay.
I cut it off. I cut the canvas out, and I have a reel on my Instagram page where it shows, me taking the X-Acto knife and me cutting around the portrait of the painting.
Okay.
And what I did was I created a collage of the newspaper clippings that covered the story, the court proceedings, the funeral, and what was really impactful about it was that I took some printing paper and I stained it with tea and coffee to age it, flattened it back out, and then I printed all those stories on, and then I created a huge collage, cool. And then I just mosh posh it all together. And I mean, it was pretty awesome. And so it told the story. It was impactful, and what was really cool about that one is I got a few opportunities to go to Chicago and display my work. And that was one of the paintings that sold while I was there. But the thing of it is, it was a retired teacher who bought it.
Okay.
When she bought the painting not to put in her own personal collection. She bought the painting with the charge for me to find a home for it in Chicago.
Wow.
She said that it was, and this is a $4,000 painting. So we're not just talking about, some pennies. She paid for the painting, and she said, I don't want it in my home. What I want you to do is I want you to find a home for it to where it can be viewed, because, it shouldn't just sit in my, in my personal collection where no one can see it. It needs to be viewed by all people, but it needs to be in Chicago.
Yeah.
And so it took me 2 years.
Really?
I contacted, wow. It took me 2 years. I contacted, and I got very little response, which was kind of crazy to me, but I kept going to shows, and while I was at the various shows, there was a few times that I displayed it without any information, just more or less saying, let's have a conversation about it. And I was able to get it connected to a lawyer's office, and they had a prominent spot that they were going to feature it. And so it's displayed in Chicago currently.
That's really cool.
And so it's cool.
That's really neat. Yeah, you just never know where your paintings will take you. And it's really cool that you're using it as your platform. I think it's awesome. And so, let's shift gears just a little bit.
Gotcha.
So we'll go back to doing art stuff, but, you've played football at KWC, you coach football at OHS, and so what's that like? What kind of lessons did you carry over from the football field or being a coach that have kind of transpired into you being an assistant principal?
So I've always found myself connected to leadership roles, whether it be from Little League to middle school, all the way up to high school and college. I've always found myself either being the captain, being the vocal leader, representing the team a certain way. And so I found it to be very natural to make the transition from sports into education, and then being in a position where either the buck stops with you or you have to find the solution.
Okay.
You have to be the one. And so even if you're not the one, you have to be the one that is willing to have the discussion, the hard discussion, to say, this is how we got to do it. Or we need to have more of a discussion, try to figure it out. And so it was quite, as challenging as it is, and interesting as it is, because I do consider myself in some ways, this may be odd, but an introvert, just because my energy and how I like to spend my chosen time is more introverted.
Okay.
But the things that I'm able to do and the things that I do are because I find myself being pulled in that direction, because it's more natural. It's more natural for me to be in the forefront. It's more natural for me to speak up and say what needs to be said, and say it in a way that keeps the ball rolling. And so football really put me in a position to understand that leadership is lonely. Leadership is a place where, yes, you connect with everybody, and while connecting with everybody, you're not fully connected to anyone. And that's no disrespect to anybody that I work with or have been around.
But it's the reality.
It's the reality, because let's be honest. You can enjoy yourself and be around people to an extent, because at some point you got to step away to let people be who they want to be and be who they are. I can't be in the social function, because then people are going to be, limited on how they, interact in those moments. And so I found myself, the same thing happened when I was playing football and I was the captain of the football team, and some of the guys didn't feel like, they could do certain things the way they wanted to do it. They couldn't go out and have a good time. They couldn't, have the time that they wanted to have, because they didn't want to either let me down or embarrass themselves in front of the individual who's supposed to be the leader of the team.
Yeah.
And that happened a lot, and so even though my trajectory into education, in my opinion, was going to be something that was really simple. I wanted to be an art teacher.
Okay.
That was my core focus. Study art education. I was a visual arts major, so I was a double major. I was going to teach art. I was going to coach football, and I was going to do that for 20 plus years.
Okay.
That was the original plan. But while I was coaching, being connected to some really good people like John DeLacy and Joe Prince, they all said the same thing. They said, you really need to go back to school and get your administrative degree. And so I just blew it off. I was like, you know what, man, I'm just good at this football stuff. That's just all it is.
Yeah.
But it translated. The way that you interact with the people, because it got to a point where I was I was helping out with the JV teams. I was, assisting, the coordinator and communicating calls. And, then I had times where I had to interact with parents, and the way that I did all of those things translated to administration so seamlessly. So that when the pressure came, I was able to manage that pressure because I'd already been in it before.
Yeah.
So it really went hand in hand. Football has been a blessing to me. Everybody has goals and aspirations of becoming a pro, but the beauty of it all is that, while I was reaching for the stars, I landed on the clouds, and, things are pretty amazing for me.
That's awesome. It's really cool. Some people, I feel like, especially in sports, if they don't get to the next level, it's like, oh, well, I failed.
Right.
But you don't have that mindset, which is really cool.
No.
Talking about just and so this is a really cool transition, because I feel like this is something that you have to work on a lot, especially with the high school kids, is that mindset. And so, when you were at OHS, you started meeting with young black men in the morning. And what inspired that? Like, what was like, hey, I need to do this? And what impact did you see from those talks?
So I got to give John a lot of credit.
Okay.
Because, we both sat down. We would have these talks, and a lot of the talks that we would be during our dismissal process, while doing bus duty, trying to get kids on the bus to go home. And it was like, man, we got to do something to try to connect, our guys, because we have a lot of guys that have a lot of potential, but I don't know if they truly see the potential that they have. And I obviously I knew what he was talking about. I mean, I saw it firsthand. I experienced it firsthand. But he actually put, pedal to the metal, and he was like, listen, I'm going to relieve you of any duties for this time of the day. You're not monitoring anything. You're not, watching any. I don't want you watching anything. You're going to have. We had at that time it was the advisory groups.
Okay.
We had advisory groups first thing in the morning, and so essentially I had an advisory group of young men that were hand-selected to be a part of my team.
Okay.
And I don't remember the total number that we had gotten to. I think we had about 14 guys at one point.
Okay.
And honestly, it was a beautiful opportunity to fellowship in many ways. We talked about a lot of things that could help and lead to success. We talked about, what would have to happen in the school day to find success, and what that will look like transitioning past high school. We talked about things that were happening in the community. And I think that was when we had our best success, is when the guys started talking about what was going on with them, because then they gave them a voice.
Yeah.
I gave them a voice without feeling like, you don't understand. Like, why am I even talking to you about it?
Yeah.
We could have the open discussions about some of the killings that were taking place in the communities, how the interactions and relations of, law enforcement with, the communities and how our communities were being policed. We could have the conversations about the purpose of, high school and why, it's important to give effort and actually do it a certain way, because it's not about, the grades per se, but it's more or less about being successful within the process, and being able to show that you can manage the process. And if you can manage this process, then you can manage almost any process, that comes thereafter. Talk about the purpose of college and the ability to connect and to network and find people that, you're probably going to have connections with the rest of your life. Like all and so much more. We talked about connections with women and the importance of how you treat your women. I mean, we talked about anything and everything. A lot of it was led by them. Sometimes I would just be a fly on the wall, soaking it all in, just taking it all in. And sometimes it would be some challenging discussions. Sometimes it would get really heated. Sometimes I had to realize, hey, man, we're in a school setting and we probably got to take a step back, because we're getting to a point to where, like, it's a really aggressive discussion.
Yeah.
But all of that and the nature of it all was necessary. There was times where I didn't like the perspectives, that they were taking. But then again, I had to take a step back and realize that, they're young men having experiences and they have valid, perspectives as well.
Yeah.
Even though it might be misguided, it's a valid perspective that they have. And who am I to tell them how to think and how to feel? But I think that's where the respect came in. The respect came in because I was willing for it to go there. And, when you're in the thick of it, you're like, man, this is challenging and it's hard and you don't know what impact you're truly having. But when I started to look at, the performance of all the kids after the fact, if I remember correctly, I really think we have 14, but out of the 14, I can only remember 3 of them not going to college.
Oh, okay.
Out of that, we had approximately 6 that graduated from college.
Okay.
And so we're talking about, the perspective and the impact of those young men. And I'm not talking about the cream of the crop. I'm not talking about the best of the best. I mean, but they were the best of the best for me.
Yeah.
Because of what they were doing and their willingness to show up every day and their willingness to participate in what we were doing. It wasn't extremely structured. It was very unstructured. But I had enough of a presence within that situation so that we could discuss things, that we could talk about stuff. And if I needed to shut it down, we did.
Okay.
But most importantly, we were in it together, And so I was very proud of the work that we were able to do with the program. It wasn't anything that we, shouted to the rooftops, because in all fairness, I didn't feel like it was replicable. Like, you have to have, certain, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but you have to have a level of trust with, the people that you're working with, and a degree of perspective that would allow something like that to work. But we used it to their benefit. We used it to our benefit. And I it was hard some mornings. Some mornings it was like, this is a challenge, and I mean that, so as
did you ever think like, man, what am I doing?
So, a lot of days.
I would say I do that. Like, I'm a character coach in Apollo, and there's times where I'm like, and I love Apollo, so hear me out. Like, there's times where I'm like, what am I doing? So I just didn't know if you went through that too.
A lot
with that group. Yeah,
a lot. And and sometimes the beauty of it all is that when you're going through those moments, you're trying to figure it out and you're asking yourself, like, what in the world's going on and what am I doing? Are we really getting anything out of it? The thing that surprises you most is that now being in, because this is my 11th year in administration.
Oh, wow.
And
I didn't realize it's been that long. Okay.
I know, man. It's nuts. But the thing that I can realize now is that, children learn most through failure. And so when I was getting to a point where I felt like we were failing and, we weren't making progress, and, my messages that I was trying to deliver were falling short or were falling on deaf ears, when I felt that way, at the end of the day, they were soaking all of it up. They were a sponge. They may not have, they may have wanted to save face and act like, it wasn't important to them. But in the long run, one of the and this was kind of hard for me, I'll be honest, but I remember like it was yesterday. One of my guys, Shug, rest his soul, he's passed away now. But he came up to me after, well, it was before graduation, but he was like, Mr. Lewis, you don't think I pay attention, do you? You don't think I'm listening, do you?
Mm-hmm.
I said, no, man, it ain't got to do with that. I just think, you hard hit. He's like, man, I listen to everything, man. I hear you. And he just said it again. I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
And like it was such a validating moment for me because we beat our head against the wall sometimes. And sometimes we don't know what the outcome is going to be. And sometimes it's really hard. And you see the young men, what they go through, you see where they're trying to get to, and they want to be treated like human beings, but sometimes they don't feel that way. Sometimes they feel like they've been lost and they've been forgotten. Mm-hmm. And they go through our processes that we have available to them, trying to be the best version of themselves. A lot of times it works and sometimes it don't. Mm-hmm. But him saying that to me, it struck a chord in me. It really did. Because listen, I loved him, but that boy was hard hit.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a lot of times. Like I hear from a lot of people who've been in the mentoring or even just a teacher, and like they'll come back and be like, "You're my favorite teacher."
Yeah.
And my wife's a third grade teacher at Cravens, and she'll have kids tell her that, and she's like, "Really? Because you were in class. Like I thought you hated me, and you were a turd." Right. So that's pretty cool, and I think that's really awesome to hear that too. You know, again, it makes it all worth it. Switching gears just a little bit. Still staying in the administration lane, but you said your goal is to remove barriers for students, and so how do you do that from within the system in ways that create lasting opportunities for kids who need them the most?
It's creating the best opportunity possible for the students that we have.
Okay.
That's the best thing that I can do, because there's always going to be some level of a barrier, because the barrier is going to be different for each individual.
Yep.
And knowing that depending on what you come to the platform with, there's going to be a different barrier for each individual. You just have to create the best circumstance possible. And that's really important to me. For me, the thing that I try to keep the main thing is that everybody deserves an opportunity to be their best self. Even if that means that, we have to give more individual time and effort, the fact still remains that the effort that we put in, needs to be a mindset of servitude, but also respecting the time that we have available. Because when you really get to breaking down, the school day, you get to breaking down the time that we have available, we spend a lot of time together, but there's a lot of interruptions too. There's a lot of things that go on. And a lot of that happens because of what we're trying to create. We're trying to create a whole experience. But in the process of doing that, the times that we do have available to us, we have to make them important to us all. Like everybody's got to be on the same page of how important that is. And that's the beautiful part for me, and part of the reason why I wanted to come to the elementary level is because I felt like it is a level where that importance remains. We haven't lost that importance. We haven't lost the importance of the time that we're investing. And a lot of times, if we could just block out all the outside noise, we could continue to fight and push forward with creating that, that best circumstance possible. And so, for me as an individual, my charge and, my individual focus day in and day out, because my daughter's here, and even before my daughter was here, we have to create the best circumstance possible to ensure that our students have a fighting chance, to have a lifestyle that, of their choosing, when they get to that point, so that they're not, feeling, left behind to some degree, or feeling like, they didn't have the foundation that was, supportive enough to put them in a position to find success. Because as different as each individual is, that's really what it is to be a human, is to find what it is that's going to make you happy at some point. And so we just want to make sure we have an impact on that foundation that we're creating, while, giving people an opportunity to interact with each other in a way, that creates, a beautiful circumstance. We're trying to foster those interactions, where we get to know each other, and so I hope our students, when they leave our place and when they go elsewhere, they understand that they are well equipped with all the tools necessary to find success the way that they want to find it. Because the human experience is one that can be tricky, but at the same time, if we have a strong foundation to start it with, we'll be okay.
Yeah, no, that's good words right there. And so let's go back into some of your art stuff real quick. You are seen by a lot of people, whether I don't know whether you realize it or not, in the education and art world as a role model. And so, like, how do you stay true to who you are while carrying that kind of visibility and responsibility?
I just think it's natural. Like I don't benefit from trying to be something that I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in this day and age too, where things are drastically changing, I do reflect on what I create and what messages I'm communicating.
Mm-hmm.
I hold no shame. I hold no concern because the messages that I communicate through my artwork are messages that can be viewed as universal, even though they have a very clear and intentional pathway of showing Black art. Like there's nothing for me to have concern with, and those who may have concern, those who may feel some kind of way about something, I'm only a conversation away.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, I don't hide myself. I don't refrain from communicating my thoughts on where I'm at with my work.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if there's a need to speak on any of my work, I do it openly because my work is only meant to represent who I am while also bridging gaps in communication. And the more that I can do that, the more that I can bring awareness to people who have levels of importance in my life, then I'm going to be okay with that. And so I don't really get too caught up in that part. That part for me is inconsequential. I can't make what I make with concerns of ruffling feathers or misrepresenting myself, in education. I mean, who I am in this building is very similar to who I am outside of this building.
Yeah.
And those who meet me, they know, and those who work with me, they know. I feel like they have a pretty good understanding of what I stand for and what I represent. I work hard, I give my best effort, I support people, and in the same way of supporting people, I create work that continues to support people, that has the conversation that people can have to grow from and build from. And so it all works hand in hand. It really does.
Looking for a place to get active, connect with others, and have fun as a family? Then come check out The Rec at FBC Owensboro. From open gym and a weight room to upward sports and community events, there's something for everyone. Memberships are super affordable, just $2 a day, $10 a month, or $60 a year. And get this, families, you only pay $120 max for the entire family for the whole year. And if you're a senior, college student, or one of our city heroes like a teacher, first responder, or healthcare worker, you get a discount too. The Rec is more than a gym, it's a place to belong. Yeah, that's really neat. I like that perspective too, because you can't please everybody, right?
No.
I'm still learning that sometimes, I feel like, but no one's perfect. So in an age where everything's just fast and digital, how do you keep your art and your message human and intentional?
It's all about feeling. So when I'm creating portraits, my goal is to capture the energy of the subject matter.
Okay.
And so I could sit down and spend 30 to 40 hours and sometimes months on a painting if I choose to, but it becomes stale.
Okay.
And that doesn't touch my soul at all. I'm not going for photorealism. That's not where I can't do that. Like I can't sit down in front of a canvas with the knowledge that I'm going to spend the next 2 months trying to produce this picture that's on my iPad or on my computer. I have the picture. Why do that? So for me, when I'm going into a piece of work, it's more about the motion. It's more about, the mixing. It's more about the application and how I apply and that feeling that I have as I'm creating. Yes, I want it to look cool. Yes, I'm trying to depict something with meaning and I'm adding, but that process of creating is what is most important for me. And so I don't get too caught up in the digital phase because, when people stand in front of my artwork, they see that. They see all the motion. They see the paint. They see the curled up pieces of oil paint that have dried and the way that looks. And, there's a complete difference of viewing something digitally versus viewing something in person. And I challenge anyone listening, go view artwork in person. What you think is very simple, through a screen, it has a completely different feel and a completely different world of itself when you see it in person. The same goes for my artwork. Something that may seem very simple, but when you get in front of it, it speaks to you. I mean, I've had people literally stand in front of my work and they become emotional because they find a connection, with the work and with the subject matter and with the things that they're able to connect to. And so I don't get too caught up in this day and age of AI and in some ways, like, I use it to my advantage, because there are some things compositionally that I can try to develop and use AI to help me figure out, especially when things, I'm trying to figure out lighting sources, I'm trying to figure out, composition, or I'm trying to figure out perspective. Sometimes I can use AI to fix some of that stuff, and then I go back in and I paint, and so it's all about embracing. I'm very flexible. I can't get caught up into it. If I can't control it, why am I stressing it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So. And I would say Chatty, I consider Chatty GPT a resource for sure. I mean, it helps me with podcasts, but even it's helped me, I think, become more creative and even more organized, which for me, if you knew me, you'd be like, yeah, you need something for you.
Oh, no, you see my desk over there.
Oh, you should see mine. You should see mine. It's worse than that. Let's move into, the days are long, right? So, I'm married to an educator, not an administrator in education, but still it is a long day.
Yeah.
And so, like, what keeps you grounded? Like, when the kids need more or the creative well feels dry, like what keeps you centered?
In all fairness, it's still a work in progress.
Okay.
And I think anybody who tells you that they have that part figured out, they're not being honest with themselves. Yes, there are some people who can manage all the things that come with education well enough to stay grounded, to find peace in mind and find peace at home. But it's a work in progress, and that's the fairest answer I can give, because there's no 2 days that are the same. And some days they sit on you, and you have to revisit them to try to find solutions. And sometimes the solution is not as easy as just sticking to a policy. A lot of times, and that's the thing that I try to explain to people all the time, like, elementary teachers work harder than anybody in education. And that's a fact. And no one really understands unless you are closely connected to an elementary teacher. Like, nobody works harder than an elementary teacher. But in my boat, in my shoes, I always have to have a mindset of, okay, well, what can potentially come next? And that kind of mindset can wear you down, because even though nothing's happening, I'm always thinking about, okay, well, who's about to walk through the door? What's about to walk through the door? And I'm trying to be proactive in most cases. And if I can get ahead of some things, then it can create a very smooth environment for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But in my attempts of being proactive and having a servitude mindset, it can create a lot of stress. And so the artwork, it does help. I really benefit from going to different art shows. Like, going to art shows, and it's so helpful to me because I get away from it. It's almost like having a completely different lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's like a window of time where I get to be this other person. Where I'm in Chicago, or I'm in Michigan area, or I'm in Atlanta, Nashville, Louisville, St. Louis. Like, I'm in these other cities, and I have my 10 by 10 setup. I got my paintings on the wall, and I'm talking about art. I'm talking about something that I'm really passionate about. And then to be blessed enough to have people invest in me like that, that's a feeling that it's hard to describe, But most importantly, my family keeps me grounded. I'm constantly evaluating, are you doing the things that can have long-term impact so that your child could have the experience that she deserves? Not one that she has to deal with, but one that she deserves. But that scares me going forward, because obviously I don't have that. I'm not going to have that same impact when she leaves this place.
Yeah.
But as far as now is concerned, I can have the direct impact to try and create circumstance. So that definitely helps. But my family, my wife, we definitely help each other.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's in education as well. She's a teacher, 5th grade teacher. And so, her ideas and her input, it always has an impact on me when we're able to do things together, and so it's very busy. It's a different world. I always tell people, listen, one of these days I'm going to probably go back to the classroom, when I'm ready just to have my own little space and I keep up with my corner of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it'll be in the art world, where I'm teaching art again and I can smile and just kick back and just focus on that. There might be a day where that happens. But as far as now is concerned, I'm still trying to find that balance. I could do better.
Yeah, I think we all can.
I could do better, but I'm gonna get there one of these days. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And I agree. I appreciate the honesty because I don't think anybody has it figured out for sure. And this one. So this last question before we get into rapid fire, it's really kind of morbid in a sense, but you'll understand here in a second. So I like to always ask every guest this, and it's been more lately, is legacy. When it's all said and done, when the brushes are dry, the hallways are quiet. Like, what do you want your legacy to be like? When people think of K.O. Lewis.
I had a quote that I put in when I was a senior in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting that I was even thinking about this back then. And I know a lot of people may think that it's very egotistical, but everybody wants to last. And the quote that I had was, "Forever is me." And the way that I look at that is now, is that every child that I've touched, every young man that I've tried to impact has a little bit of me, whether it be a mannerism, whether it be a perspective, whether it be a personal goal or focus of their own that I may have influenced. Mm. I'm hoping I've done enough in my life to pass that on.
Mm-hmm.
And to know that I've had a chance to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want my legacy to be.
That's cool. I think it's a good legacy.
That's what I want.
All right. Well, we're going to transition something a little bit more. No, that was good. That was a great question. We're going to jump into something a little bit more lighthearted.
Okay.
But I think so far, I'm like, man, I've enjoyed listening and having the conversation with you.
I appreciate this.
And so we're going to jump into something called 270 Seconds of Fame.
Oh,
I don't actually record to see if it's 270 seconds, but it's lighthearted, fun questions, quick answers. You ready?
Maybe.
All right, let's try it out. All right, first thing you do when you walk into New Parish in the morning, is there like a habit you have that you do every morning?
Have a drink. Coffee or water.
Okay. Favorite part of being an assistant principal, is it the kids, the chaos, or the coffee?
The fist bumps.
The fist bumps. I like that too. Which grade level keeps you laughing the most?
Oh, kindergarten by far.
You played football at KWC. Who was the toughest player you ever faced on the field?
DeMarcus Ganaway.
Okay. Hey, he's a OHS now. Mm-hmm. Assistant coach days at OHS. What's one game you'll never forget while you were an assistant?
Hold on, I'll take that one back. George Bussey played for the New England Patriots.
Oh, okay.
That big joker. Biggest hands I've ever seen in my life. Big George Bussey. Yes. That would be my answer about the football player. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. When you were an assistant coach at OHS, mm-hmm. What's one game you'll never forget?
Who did we play? North Oldham, North Hardin, North somebody, mm-hmm. and we Keyshawn Walker catches the Hail Mary pass for us to win the game to go to the state championship.
Oh, that's awesome!
Never forget it.
What year was that?
That was 2015. I think it's the same year we won the state title in basketball.
Okay.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That's cool. That's cool. You're a diehard Ravens fan.
Oh, yes.
That's a little unfortunate on my end, but we'll pray for you. But in all honesty, what's the prediction for this season? Lamar's back. What does it look like for you? What do you think they're going to do?
All right, so my pipe dream is that we'll enter into the playoffs, sneak in with the wild card, and we'll go on a major run of winning about 15 straight, and we will win the Super Bowl. But my realistic thing is that we'll win the wild card, win our division. We'll probably be out the second round of the playoffs. So realistic.
Yeah, well, you could just play the Steelers in the first round. That would be an automatic win. I'm just saying.
Kick you all's butt.
Yeah. Mike Tomlin's good at losing first round playoff games. So,
yeah, buddy.
All right, we'll divert to that. We'll move on. All right, so you've been a Ravens fan. Who's your all time favorite Raven?
Ray Lewis.
Ray Lewis. Okay. I remember when Jamal Lewis played for the Ravens.
Yep.
I did not like him, but he was
the days of Jonathan Ogden, Trent Dilfer, Ray, Peter Boulware, all of them. Yeah.
Hey, look, I'm a Steelers fan, but you've had some good players. You've had like Ed Reed.
100%.
All right, well, some more pressure. Is it 4th and goal or finishing a portrait that just isn't clicking?
4th and goal. The portrait always gets fixed.
Okay. What's your favorite art show that you've participated in and why?
St. James Art Fair. It's like a family reunion every year.
Okay.
Most really amazing show.
Where's that at?
It's in Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay. All right. You meet an artist who doesn't know Owensboro. What do you tell them about the art scene here in Owensboro?
It's limited.
Okay. All right. Favorite medium to work with, acrylics, oils, or digital? Oils, okay. In one sentence, describe your style as an artist. I am a contemporary expressionist portrait painter with a focus on Black culture. Okay, it kind of sounds like a doctor title. like I'm a surgeon, but blah, 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 blah,
you can tell I've said something like that before. For sure.
No, that's cool. Let's see. You get what's one piece you wish, or what's one piece of art you wish you created yourself? Like, is this one that's come out over the years? Or?
I have an artist that I follow. His name is Tim Okamura.
Okay.
He paints a lot of Black people, and it's not necessarily one piece in particular, but the way that he paints and the thickness of how he paints with the paint and how beautiful his portraits are. Mm-hmm. Or there's this artist by the name of Richard Wilson out of Detroit, Michigan, who's also amazing. Their work, I follow it to a T. They're amazing artists. So yes, don't have a specific painting, but
artists.
Love the work.
There you go. You get one. Well, this may go right into the last question. You get one dream collaboration with any living artist. Who is it?
Yeah,
no, I put you on the spot on that one.
Man, cause like 3 names just shot in my head. Oh man! But then I want somebody's work that would actually work with mine. Oh me, man, this one is stumping me.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll go to back to that one at the end.
Okay, you come back to it, because I'm gonna think.
You're good. All right, so we'll go back to that one at the end. What's one non-famous artist the world needs to know about?
Non-famous artist?
I'm sure there's thousands, if not millions, out there.
I'm telling you, man. So there's this guy by the name of Richard Wilson. He is a pastel artist.
Okay.
He's out of Virginia. No, he's not. He's out of North Carolina, and his work is breathtaking. I run into him quite a bit, when I'm on the art scene. But he's somebody who does very well. Has people such as Tiger Woods who are collectors of his.
Oh wow!
But such an amazing artist.
Yeah.
Somebody who definitely should be more well known than what he is.
Yeah, Richard Wilson. Is that you said it was? All right, so look him up. You just got back from Disney. Yes, I've done some Facebook stalking. What was your favorite ride at Disney?
Oh, Tiana, the Tiana ride.
Okay, 100%. Yeah.
My goodness, takes your breath away.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I remember when it was still Splash Mountain and we rode it, and I did not expect the drop at the end.
Oh my goodness!
I was like, man, this might be one of the scarier rides at Disney.
See, I didn't expect the double drop. The double drop.
Oh yeah,
because there's a small one in there, and you don't know it's because it's inside the mountain. And then that last one comes, and you just know it's coming. The music is
you're kind of coming up. You're climbing over the hill.
Like, oh, here it comes. So it's a good time.
We lived in New Orleans, so we kind of favored Princess and the Frog, the brothers.
Perfect.
All right, so let's see. More fun at Disney. Was it your daughter meeting characters or you acting like one?
My daughter meeting characters, for sure.
What was her favorite character?
She doesn't have one.
Okay.
Everybody's a favorite character in the moment.
yeah, that's cool. Quick word association, mentorship. What's the first word that comes to your mind?
Effort.
Okay. Back at KWC or OHS, what's one life lesson you still carry from the locker room today?
Loyalty.
Okay. How did you and your wife meet? And between the two of you, who's the better artist?
Oh, KWC and artist. Yeah, I'm definitely the better artist.
yeah. Who's the better educator?
She is.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go, Miss Lewis. You got a point there.
Amazing.
yeah.
Yes.
All right, and then let's go back to that one last question. If you thought about it a little bit more, and that's that dream collaboration with the living artist.
It would be Kehinde Wiley.
Okay.
One of the most important artists of our generation.
Okay, cool. I'll have to look him up and check him out for sure. All right, well,
he did President Obama's national portrait.
Oh, okay. That's cool. I didn't know that. That's cool. Well, you passed, so good job. You're still assistant principal at New Parish.
Thank you.
So I have one last question. I ask this to every guest. I always have to ask it on the spot. So if you listen to the podcast, people will be like, "Oh yeah, I know what you're going to ask," but I always think there's a lot of gold when it's asked on the spot. So if people are listening to this episode and you're like, "Man, if they just got one thing out of this," or like, do you have anything like challenging, encouraging, inspiring? Like, what do you want to leave like the audience with at the end of the episode?
I think we're in a day and age to where fact is being questioned as opinion. And if there's one thing that I would challenge any and everybody to do is to be willing to trust the information that is provided to you by those who have the experiences that are within. We're not in any position to try and trick anybody, push anybody. We are community leaders for a reason. We are fighting to the nail, sacrificing ourselves to some degree. There's not a whole lot of there's no ulterior motive from us. We are here to help, and so trust the information that we're giving you. Use the information to some good. Don't discredit what we're trying to do because we're here to help. We're here to serve. What we get out of this is seeing, the young people that we serve day in and day out find success. So please work with us. Don't work against us.
No, it's good stuff. And so I thought this was a great episode. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed listening to your experience as a football player, as an artist, as an educator, as a dad. And so it's been really fun just to sit down with you and have this conversation. I'll tell Tehran you said hi.
I will.
I hope he's listening to this. But
ask him about that argument that him and I had where it just got, he might not even remember anymore, but I remember.
You remember it,
He had me so hot dog, that joker.
Yeah.
Tehran's a good guy.
He's pretty chill. I'm surprised. It's hard for me to think of him that way. But yeah, so it's been great.
He knows how to pick your buttons, though.
Does he? Nice. Well, I hope he doesn't pick my buttons too much, but we'll see. But no, this has been a great conversation. And so if you're listening to this, go ahead and share with, if you're part of the art community, share there. If you're part of the football community, share there. If you're just somebody who's listening to this, I think this is an episode that's worth listening to. I was even thinking there are some parts of it where I'm like, man, like I wish I wrote down what KO said. And so it was a great episode. If you're listening to this on Apple, Spotify, give us that 5-star rating if you think that we deserve that. And thanks for listening to us this week, KO. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Sir.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thanks for tuning in to All Things Owensboro, where we celebrate the stories, people, and places that make our city special. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves this town as much as you do. Until next time, Owensboro, keep loving local, supporting one another, and making Owensboro a place we're all proud to call home.